Hi friends, welcome to Daily Ethics. In this session, I'll be taking examples from the newspaper from the ethics point of view, and we will help you develop concepts around those examples. Attending these sessions regularly will give you a lot of examples which you can use in your ethics paper and also give you conceptual clarity. Guys, I have scored more than 100 in ethics paper multiple times, and I can tell you the only way you can score more than 100 in ethics paper is using examples. And this has helped me and my students to score more than 150 marks in the ethics paper. So guys, let us see what was the news yesterday. So there was a news yesterday that CBI had arrested Power Grid executive director and staff of Tata Power Projects on graft charges. Graft charges means corruption charges. Okay, so what was the charge here? What was the charge here? The CBI has alleged that in conspiracy with others, okay, the ED of Power Grid was extending favors to Tata Powers for various works, including preparation of inflated bills, okay, then price variation clause related to the contracts and of Power Grid Corporation in lieu of the demand and acceptance of illegal gratification. Okay, basically he was extending some favors. Okay, the ED was extending some favors to the private company, in return of some favors. Also, he helped the private company to get some contracts. So we will see, okay, what are the ethical concepts involved in this example and how can we use this example in the basically ethics paper. Okay, so here the basic concept is concept of corruption. Okay, what is corruption? Corruption is simply what? Misuse of public office for personal gain. So what here, ED, executive director of Power Grid, okay, he was in a public office and he was using his power, or he was abusing his power or misusing his power as a executive director of a public company for his personal gains, because he was getting some personal gains. Okay, so this is what is corruption, guys. Generally what we think corruption is like, okay, asking for bribes. Okay, no friends, corruption are different types. Okay, corruptions are different types. So I can divide corruption into three different types. The first type of corruption is basically, it is called, okay, it is called facilitative corruption. Okay, facilitative corruption. The second type of corruption is called collusive corruption. And the third type of corruption is called extractive corruption. Okay, so let me give you example and explain what are these three types of corruption. Okay, see, facilitative corruption, generally when we go to a block office or a panchayat office, and when we want a caste certificate or an income certificate to be given to us, okay, and they say that, okay, that it will take like 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, but we want it very early. So what they will say, when we request them that please give us, they will say, okay, I can give you, please give me some money. Okay, some 100 rupees, 1000 rupees, I don't know exactly, but point is, basically this money is asked to facilitate the process. Okay, this is called facilitative corruption at a lower end. Okay, for example, any kind of license or something like that, you need a driving license or any kind, it's called facilitative corruption, where you willingly give the bribe, okay, to get your things done in an easy manner. Okay, because the system is so complex and time taking, it's so much delay is there, so we happily give the bribe to get our things done. Okay, that is because of the problem of the system. Okay, that is called facilitative corruption. Okay, the second type of corruption is called collusive corruption, where the bribe giver and the bribe taker, okay, both basically collude, okay, in a conspiracy, which is this case. There was a conspiracy to favor some firm over the other. So this is called collusive corruption. Collusive corruptions are like grand corruptions. They are called grand corruption because they happen at the top. Collusive corruption happen at the top, at the level of policy, at the level of big projects. Okay, big tenders, crores and crores of tenders. So that is what is very big, very difficult to tackle. Collusive corruption is very difficult to tackle. Okay, even the CBI has said that there is increasing instances of collusive corruption, and it is very challenging to tackle collusive corruption, because Generally, what is the perception that the bribe giver is a person who is harassed, okay, and the bribe taker is a person who is exploiting. But in this case, okay, it is the bribe giver who is also gaining something out of the collusive corruption, and it is the bribe taker also who is also gaining. So collusive corruption is a uh, very big thing, and grand corruption, whenever you see any kind of big scams which has happened in India, are examples of collusive corruption, where okay, the either the civil servant or the politician and the business business enterprise, both were colluding in order to loot the exchequer or loot the resources of the country. Okay, so there are many examples. I will not go into that examples. And the last type of corruption is called extractive corruption, which happens where okay, where at the lower end, when civil servants, okay, they don't turn up for their work, okay, and they try to embezzle some of the funds. For example, Manrega funds, they try to embezzle some of the funds, divert, misappropriate some of the funds. This is called extractive corruption. Okay, guys. So how to tackle corruption? If the question is that how can we tackle corruption, so there are different ways we can tackle facilitative corruption, there are different ways to tackle collusive corruption, and there are different ways to tackle extractive corruptions. Okay, for example, facilitative corruptions can easily be tackled by improving the system, improving the government system. If the government system is transparent, if the government system is simple, obviously there is no need of any kind of facilitative corruption. There is no need of it if the government system is time bound. So here what we can do, we can bring okay we can bring right to service, okay, right to service, timely service, okay, and there are various ways we can bring more transparency, okay. Then uh, tackling extractive corruption is also very not very difficult, where here also we have to bring in technology. You see now in Manrega a lot of technology is introduced, okay, and biometrics is introduced to check any kind of misappropriation of fund. As far as collusive corruption is concerned, it is very difficult to tackle collusive corruption because it happens at the top, and there both the bribe giver and bribe taker both are gaining out of the thing. So what government has come out, government has, or the CVC has come out with integrity pacts. So any kind of tendering happens, okay, then there has to be an integrity pact, okay, which has to be signed by the bidders, okay, and there will be an external monitor to see that there is no kind of unethical practices which have been carried out in giving away the contract. So there, here you can talk about integrity pacts, guys. Okay, whenever we here on one more concept we can link here we can link one more concept, and that concept is called probity. Whenever we talk about, okay, here you see we are talking about contracts. Whenever we talk about contracts, okay, like procurement, government contracts, or government procurement, okay, we have to use the theory of probity. What is probity? Probity is basically what? Evidence of ethical behavior. See, whenever any process of government, whether it is the bidding process, whether it is a procurement process, has probity, then people will have faith in that process, and that will be carried out in an ethical manner. So what are the various features or elements of probity which basically proves that there is an ethical way of carrying out that bidding? Okay, so these are what? Transparency. When there is transparency, when there is accountability, when there is no conflict of interest, there is confidentiality. When there is confidentiality, generally what happens in these kinds of bidding process, guys, what happens that there is a leak of some information, that who is the lowest bidder, and this information is leaked. So if you have to maintain the probity, then you have to maintain the confidentiality of the basically process. Okay, so these are the four values: transparency, accountability, avoidance of conflict of interest, and confidentiality, that ensures probity of a process, whether you can take tendering process, whether you can take procurement process. Okay, so we need to bring probity in government's processes, particularly at the top, where we are procuring huge amounts of goods and services, okay, at crores and crores worth, okay, and we are giving huge contracts, okay. So there needs to be probity. Okay, so these two topics are there in our syllabus. probity and corruption. So this is linked to the current affairs which came yesterday. Okay, one more news was there yesterday, where the managing director, the MD, okay, the MD of the National High Speed Railway was removed and terminated from service. Okay, and because of the decision of a Lokpal, okay. And what was the charge against him? The charges of corruption against him was quid pro quo. Was a quid pro quo charge. Quid pro quo means basically same thing. When, okay, he was the MD, when he was the, you see here, when he was the managing director, here also you see managing director of Rail Vikas Nigam. Okay, Rail Vikas Nigam. Okay, when he was the managing director of Rail Vikas Nigam, he basically, okay, was giving some favors. He was giving some favors to private companies in return of some favor. Okay, so basically this is also a kind of corruption. This is also a kind of corruption, collusive corruption. This is also a kind of collusive corruption. He was basically helping some private companies getting some contracts, okay, of Railway Vikas Nigam Limited, and in return he was getting some favors. I think there was an instance where he got some, okay, he got some postings also after retirement. Okay, you have to read, but the point is here is what? The point is here is that it is a example of collusive corruption. It is an example of collusive corruption where you do something in order to get some favor. You do something. Quid pro quo means you give some favor to someone in order to get some favor. Okay, so all these kind of corruption, all these kinds of corruption basically is what? Lack of integrity. What is this integrity? Integrity is a value in civil service which basically means that, okay, you have to stick to your values, you have to stick to your principles, you have to adhere to your principles under any circumstances. That is what is called integrity. But when these examples, when you see the Power Grid ED, or when you see the MD of the Rail Vikas Nigam, when they are compromising the ethical principles in order to gain something, so they are influenced by whether any kind of material gain or any kind of financial gain or any kind of gain. Okay, so they were influenced in their decision making, and thus they lost integrity. They did not show integrity, and thus the corrupt behavior happened. So you see, integrity is the highest safeguard against corrupt behavior. Integrity is the highest safeguard against corrupt behavior. Therefore, you see in the civil service conduct rules, in the government code of ethics, okay, integrity is like one of the highest value. Okay, every civil servant must uphold a highest, utmost integrity in his behavior. Okay, that is the best safeguard against corrupt behavior. Okay, guys, so I hope that you like this discussion. Please like the video if it is helping you, and please let me know, okay, that what other things you want from me as far as ethics is concerned. I am ready to help you, guys. I really want to help you to score like me more than 100 marks in ethics. I can tell you guys, out of all the GS paper, it is the ethics paper and the essay paper is the highest scoring paper, and if you score more than 120, 130,